Hey, Miles Beckler here, milesbeckler.com, and in this video, we are going to look at Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow quadrant model, specifically looking at how that kind of affects or works with you moving into internet marketing. So if you're not familiar with the cash flow quadrant idea, it's from his book, from Robert Kiyosaki, who's the Rich Dad Poor Dad guy, and from his book, The Cash Flow Quadrant. And in it, he's got this little diagram. I'm going to draw it out for you real quick. And it's essentially, there's 4 quadrants, right? The first one is employee. The second one is self-employed or solo practitioner. The third one is business. And the fourth one is investor, right? So it goes from employee, self-employed, business owner, and investor. So what happens with internet marketers is this changes a little bit because he's talking about businesses being essentially like 500-person companies, and then the solo practitioners down here and the specialists are like doctors and whatnot. Now, I really like this concept, and it's great for most people who are kind of in a more traditional lifestyle, but for us working online and building our businesses online, there's a little tweak to this cash flow quadrant that we can do that makes your progression through these a lot smoother, and it helps you understand where you're at within the quadrants so you kind of know what's next for you to move forward. So the first one, right, employee, that's where we all start. When I started my Make Money Online career, and started my kind of internet business, if you will, I still had a job, and I tried to quit my job once, and that totally backfired in my face. I lost all my money, sold my car, trying to keep the dream alive, if you will, went through all of that money. The business still wasn't making enough for me to be full-time anymore. Ended up having to move back into the parents' house at about 30 years old with my wife, and my parents lived in a really small house, so it was mildly awkward. I'm eternally grateful for their help and their willingness to help us, but that was a very humbling experience. So what did I do? I became an employee again. I went out and I got a job, and I worked my ass off on the sides, nights, and weekends. So if you're right here and you have a job, what you want to be doing is side work, right? So side hustle is what I'll call it. So you got to get your side hustle going first and foremost. And that can be your first funnel. It could be your first authority site. It could be whatever your first kind of web-based business is. You want to be doing that on the side as you're an employee. Now, something really cool happens here. The money you're making here, you're already paying taxes on, right? But when you get a good CPA on your team, you're going to realize that the money you spend here can actually come out of taxes you're already paying. So you can end up getting a little bit more net money because your cell phone, your home internet, and some of these, your web hosting, your Thrive themes, you know, all of these individual components that you purchase, your Facebook ads, all of that's deductible against what you're already earning online. Obviously, if you're not making that much at your job, that's not going to be a gigantic help. But if you do have a $100,000, $150,000 a year job, this can actually be a net benefit to you right out of the gates. So your learning curve and those expenses of learning how to make money online can really actually offer you some very direct benefits. If you've got a home office, your cell phone, your home internet, travel to conferences, the expenses of conferences, new cell phones because you got to do videos like these, etc. Okay, moving right along, and obviously talk to a CPA. I'm not a CPA, but you want to have a great CPA on your team. So what happens, right? You're working on your side hustle as an employee for a while. You keep going with this, and eventually you're going to get down to the point where you're self-employed. Now, for me, this took a very interesting twist, right? My side hustle was creating about 50% of my income I needed to truly live online. Truly live off of the income I was making online, excuse me. So what I ended up doing is I was kind of documenting my process and what I was doing on the side in a very small way on social media. I was showing screenshots of traffic, of analytics, of my Facebook campaigns, of my subscribers, and what happened was really interesting. People in my network and friends of friends from my network started reaching out and saying, hey, Miles, I've got a yoga studio and my website sucks. Can you help me out? Or, hey, Miles, I've got this little design business and my visitors aren't getting any traffic. Can you help me out? And at that point, something really special happened. And I continued working on my side hustle here for 50%. I was able to replace my day job with client work. I began what was essentially a small agency. I was doing WordPress development for people, which is incredibly simple stuff, by the way. And it's all of the skills I was learning through my nights and weekends during the employee phase, right? So everything I learned here, I started selling at an hourly rate down here. And what that did is it allowed me to get out of my employee situation more quickly, because 50% of my income was coming from my side hustle, and then the other 50% was coming from client work. And at that point, I was able to get out of my job and I moved to a new location and I was fully self-employed. Now, a couple of things happen here at the self-employed phase. First and foremost, you absolutely take it on taxes. It's crazy to me. I don't fully understand why it works in this way, but as a self-employed individual, you pay self-employment tax, which is literally like an extra 15 or 18%, and it is the highest tax level that I think you can ever actually get to. If you're making a lot of money and you're self-employed, you're probably paying the highest rate of tax you possibly can. We'll talk about the answer to that here in a second. But another thing happened is more of my life became tax deductible, right? More of my life of both of these, right? Because now I'm outsourcing services, I'm hiring developers, and a lot more of what I'm spending in my business is able to be written off. So even though I was paying more in taxes, I was keeping my overall income relatively low because my expenses for my business went up. So I operated here in this self-employed realm for about 2 years. I was building WordPress sites, I was selling marketing services. Essentially everything I was doing for my side hustle that was working, I was then offering to clients and doing those things for between $25 and $75 an hour. I built my first WordPress websites for people for literally like $200. I would build WordPress sites kind of in my prime for about $1,000 to $1,500 each. It would take me somewhere from 4 to 6 hours if they would supply the content, which I always tried to have them do. And if you break that down, it turns out to be, $200 an hour, $150 an hour for that kind of work. And I learned all of that from my side hustle, right? So this is an evolution is what I'm showing you. And I'm trying to help you understand the evolution that's possible for you. And you might already be down here and figure out where you fit in, and let's take you to the next level. So after running it this way for a while, I kept working on my side hustle, and at a certain point, the income from my side hustle increased beyond what the other income was making from my self-employed from selling services. And another thing that's important to remember in this self-employed side of things is you're still an employee, right? You don't have a boss, but you have clients. And client work can be very difficult because clients can be needy, they have emotional needs, they're in, they're out, they lose contact, they pay you 1 week, they don't, you have to chase down the money, and it brings its own kind of level of stress. Now, I'm thankful for my time in that role and doing client work. It got me even more experience in a condensed period of time. And what it really did is it freed up a couple of hours every single day. My commute time was gone, right? I didn't have to commute. I worked from home at that point. And also my lunchtime, I'd pretty much work from my desk, right? So it really made my lifestyle value, like the enjoyment in my lifestyle went up significantly. And I found that I had an extra 10, 15 hours per week that was kind of getting sucked up by my JOB and not actually producing income for those hours. And I was able to turn those into income producing hours. So it was a great step for me. So where do we go from there? From the self-employed part, we go to the business level. And this is where the big difference is from Robert Kiyosaki's Cashflow Quadrant and mine. He says that this is big business, like 500 plus employees. And I'm all about no employee businesses. To me, the B level is when you have systems, right? So this is all about having business systems, not necessarily large amounts of employees, that make sure that your business, which once was a side hustle, continues running efficiently with or without your input. Now, one thing I know you've seen in my videos is the fact that I'm all about you doing something you love, because when you love it, you're going to wake up, you're going to be stoked to do it, you're going to put out more content, and it's going to be fun. And when it's fun, you do it. But with that said, it's still really important to focus on creating business systems that will guarantee you long-term success with or without your efforts and without your inputs, in case you want to take a month off, in case you want to do a vacation, in case you're just wanting to explore a new hobby or a new passion or start another project. So for me right now, this is where I'm at, is in this kind of business level. I have a team of customer service representatives. I have a developer. I have multiple designers on my team. And a lot of my business is maintained from them and their efforts. And if I walked away right now from my business and my wife walked away from our business right now, I guarantee you our cash flow wouldn't be that negatively affected. We would make an incredibly comfortable full-time income for 6 months to a year to 2 years with literally zero input. And that's where we're at now. And this is a really magical place to be. So at this point, we have a corporation type structure. We're not self-employed anymore. So we've eliminated that self-employment tax. We have people and systems doing work for us. These are contractors, not employees. It lightens our liability, and it's only specific task-based items that they do. Most of my contractors are actually in the Philippines. And it's through the systems that we've created that generate long-term results for the inputs and for what we're doing. I've also got systems in place like on my advertising and my marketing and my funnels that track the efficiency of all of these items. And essentially what happens is my teammates know, hey, Miles, we have a problem on this ad campaign because you're out of your KPIs. Or they know to just let these ad campaigns run because they're within their KPIs. Literally totally hands off. So quick story, we went on the Nomad cruise this last year. I was invited to speak. It's a 2-week, 14-day cruise from South America. It's a transatlantic cruise that goes to Portugal in Europe, right? So we crossed the Atlantic Ocean on a boat, and there was 200 nomads, and I was invited to speak about funnels and pay-per-click. On that cruise, the internet was non-existent. And Melanie and I didn't really care that much. It was kind of like, oh, well, we'd like to put out a video or two. We'd like to email our list, but okay, if there's no internet, there's no internet. We're just going to enjoy ourselves and make some connections. There were people on this boat who were freaking out. Their businesses were collapsing. One girl had to refund a $7,000 coaching client because she couldn't get in touch with them enough, and the internet wasn't there, and their businesses were flailing, and they were freaking out. And that is just such a good example of being self-employed and being required every minute to be in your business and to be pushing on your business to make any sort of progress, to having systems in place that really are a business model that generates income for you. And that's what I'm all about here, is teaching you how to get to this point. And once you're there, here's what's really cool, is you can move into the investor side of things. And this is where you can take the cash flow that you're making here and you can put into houses. Oh man, my writing's getting good. Put into rental houses. You can put into index funds. You can purchase assets. Specifically, I'm talking about web assets, right? So you could actually go buy profitable websites. You could go buy affiliate sites. You could build a portfolio of web assets with the money you're making here. So if you make $400,000 in a year, you don't necessarily put $400,000 in profit and pay taxes on that. You spend $100K on some web assets, and then that comes off as an expense, and you get cash flow long-term for buying these web assets. Or you put some money in your IRA into index funds, and you get the slow long-term growth. Or you start buying rental houses, and you're putting the money in up front, and you're getting some leverage from banks, and you're getting the long-term cash flow growth. It's all about taking this income that we're making from our web-based businesses and turning it into other kinds of assets that we can leverage for long-term cash flow. And that, my friend, is my take on the cash flow quadrant idea, specifically tailored to us as internet marketers and kind of the solopreneur ideas here on the web. It's a new idea. You know, when he made this cash flow system in the late 90s, really the systems weren't in place. Like, the internet was around, sure, there were people making money online, but it wasn't as easy as it is today. So that's my update on his system. Thank you very much for your time. I do appreciate it. Click the like button, the thumbs up here in YouTube if you enjoyed the video. I enjoyed sharing this concept with you. Figure out where you fit in on here, what stage you're at, and what stage you're moving towards. Leave me a comment. Let me know where you're at, and if you have any questions about how to bridge the gap to the next phase, leave me a comment. I'm happy to answer your questions in the comment. And finally, if you have not subscribed, please do, because I got some cool stuff coming down the pipeline for you, and I will see you on the next video. Thanks for your time.